The universe was old. It had seen the birth and death of countless stars. It had watched civilizations rise from mud and reach for the heavens. It had witnessed empires that spanned 1,000 worlds crumble into dust. But in all its ancient history, the universe had only created 3 things that truly scared everyone. The first was the death of stars. When a sun collapsed, it could swallow entire solar systems. Nothing could stop it. Nothing could escape it. The second was the devouring plague, a sickness that spread from world to world, turning living things into gray ash. It had killed billions before the Galactic Coalition found a cure. The third was the Void Stalker. Ambassador Yuna stood in the Great Hall of the Coalition Council. The hall was massive, built to hold representatives from over 200 species. Today, every seat was filled. Every eye watched her. Every translator hummed with nervous energy. Yuna was a Kalari. Her people had blue skin covered in small, shimmering scales. They were known for being calm and careful. But today, Yuna's scales flickered with colors that showed her fear. She could not hide it. No one could hide their fear when talking about what she had to discuss. 3 days ago, Yuna began, her voice steady despite her terror. We lost contact with Outpost Vera 7. A murmur spread through the hall. Vera 7 was a military station near the edge of Coalition space. 2,000 soldiers lived there. It was built to defend against any threat. We sent a rescue team, Yuna continued. They found the station intact. The walls were not damaged. The doors were not broken. The power was still running. She paused. But everyone was dead. The murmur grew louder. Some representatives stood from their seats. Others gripped the arms of their chairs with trembling hands. The security cameras recorded everything, Yuna said. She pressed a button on her console. A holographic image appeared in the center of the hall. The image showed a hallway inside the station. Soldiers ran through it, their weapons raised. They were firing at something behind them. Bright beams of energy lit up the corridor. But the thing they were shooting at did not slow down. It moved like smoke and shadow. Its body was long and low to the ground, like a great hunting cat. But it had no fur. Its skin was darker than space itself, so black that light seemed to fall into it and disappear. Its eyes burned with a cold, pale fire, and its claws cut through metal walls like they were made of paper. The soldiers screamed. One by one, they fell. The creature did not eat them. It did not need to. It fed on something else. Something worse. It fed on their fear. The recording ended. The hall was silent. The Void Stalker has awakened, Yuna said. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Elder Gorham of the Threll Dominion rose from his seat. He was ancient, even by his species' long standards. His stone-like skin was cracked with age. He had seen many terrible things in his life. But even he looked afraid now. How is this possible? Gorham demanded. The last Void Stalker died 8,000 years ago. Our ancestors made sure of it. They hunted them to extinction. They thought they did, Yuna replied. They were wrong. This creature was sleeping. Hidden somewhere in deep space, something woke it up. And now it is hunting again. The council erupted into chaos. Representatives shouted over each other. Some called for immediate military action. Others demanded evacuation of nearby systems. A few simply sat in shocked silence, their faces pale with despair. Yuna understood their panic. She had studied the old records. She knew what the Void Stalker was capable of. In ancient times, before the Coalition existed, the Void Stalkers had been everywhere. They were the top predators of the galaxy. They did not hunt for food or territory. They hunted because fear was their food. They could sense terror across vast distances. They were drawn to it like sharks to blood and water, and they had a terrible ability. They could step between dimensions. One moment they were in front of you. The next moment they were behind you. Walls could not stop them. Shields could not block them. They moved through reality like ghosts through fog. The ancient species had fought back. They had built weapons powerful enough to crack planets. They had created traps clever enough to catch gods. And after centuries of war, they had finally killed the last Void Stalker. Or so they believed. "What do we do?" asked Representative Mira of the Crystal Accord. Her body was made of living glass, and it chimed with every worried movement. "Our weapons are not as strong as the Ancients' weapons. Our soldiers are not as many. How do we fight this thing?" Yuna had no good answer. "We run," she said honestly. "We seal our borders, we hide, and we hope it does not find us." It was not a brave answer, but it was the only honest one. Over the next few weeks, the galaxy changed. The Thrall Dominion pulled all their ships back to their home systems. They activated defense platforms that had not been used in millennia. The Crystal Accord went further. They destroyed their own transit gates, the devices that allowed fast travel between stars. They cut themselves off from the rest of the galaxy completely. Other species did the same. Trade routes closed. Communications went silent. Civilizations that had been connected for thousands of years suddenly became islands, lone in the vast dark ocean of space. And still, the Void Stalker hunted. Reports came in from across the galaxy. A mining colony in the Redfall sector, gone. A diplomatic ship carrying peace envoys, silent. A research station, studying ancient ruins. Everyone dead, their faces frozen in expressions of pure terror. The creature was not just killing, it was feeding. And the more fear it consumed, the stronger it became. Yuna worked day and night trying to find a solution. She read every old record she could find. She consulted with scientists and historians and military experts. But no one had any answers. "The Ancients barely won," one historian told her. "And they had weapons we cannot even imagine anymore. That knowledge is lost. We are like children trying to fight a monster with sticks." Una refused to give up. There had to be something. Some weakness. Some way to stop this nightmare before it consumed everything. She did not know that the answer was already out there. On a small, unimportant planet orbiting a yellow star, in a tiny farmhouse surrounded by cabbage fields, she did not know that an old human farmer named Doyen had already solved the problem. He had solved it 6 years ago. Actually, with leftover rice, a warm blanket, and a lot of patience. But the galaxy was not ready to hear that story yet. First, they needed to learn something important. They needed to learn that the scariest creatures in the universe were not always the biggest or the strongest. Sometimes, the scariest creatures were the ones who simply were not afraid. Lieutenant Wujin was not having a good day, or a good week, or a good month, really. He sat alone in his small scout ship, staring at the star chart on his screen. His mission was simple but boring. He had to visit the outer systems of the galaxy and look for safe evacuation routes. Places where people could run if the Void Stalker came too close. It was important work. But it was also lonely work. Wujin had been flying alone for 3 weeks now. His only company was the ship's computer, and it was not very good at conversation. Approaching next system, the computer announced in its flat, mechanical voice, "One habitable planet detected. Species present, human, technology level, basic interstellar. Coalition status, new member." Humans, he had heard of them. They had only discovered how to travel between stars about 40 years ago. In galactic terms, they were babies. Most coalition species did not take them very seriously. "What's the planet called?" Wujin asked. "Local name. Earth." Wujin pulled up the information on his screen. Earth was a small world, mostly water with one large moon. Population around 9 billion. Nothing special. Nothing interesting. Just another routine scan, he thought. Check the planet, record the data, move on. His ship entered the solar system and began its standard survey. Wujin leaned back in his chair and closed his eyes. Maybe he could take a short nap while the computer did its work. Then the alarm went off. Wujin jumped so hard he nearly hit his head on the ceiling. Red lights flashed across his console. Warning messages scrolled across every screen. The ship's computer, usually so calm, was practically screaming. Alert, alert. Void Stalker signature detected. Concentration, extreme, alert. Alert. Wujin's heart stopped. His blood turned to ice. For a moment, he could not move. He could not think. He could only stare at the screens in pure, freezing terror. The Void Stalker was here, on this tiny, unimportant planet. Right now, his training kicked in. His fingers flew across the console, activating the emergency beacon. Every coalition warship within 3 sectors would receive his signal. They would come. They would fight. They would probably die, but at least they would try. But then he stopped. Something was wrong with the readings. Wujin forced himself to look closer, even though every part of his brain was screaming at him to run away. The Void Stalker signature was not moving. It was staying in one place. On the surface of the planet, in a region called... He checked the translation. Jungi Province. That made no sense. Void Stalkers never stayed still. They hunted constantly. They moved from place to place, following the scent of fear. Why would one just sit there? Wujin pulled up the satellite view. His ship had very good cameras. They could see individual buildings from orbit. He zoomed in on the location of the signature. He saw a small farm. There were fields of green vegetables. A wooden house with a sloped roof. A small pond with some ducks swimming in it. And sitting on the porch of the house, there was an old human man. Next to the old man, there was a Void Stalker. Wujin blinked. He rubbed his eyes. He checked his equipment to make sure it was working correctly. Then he looked again. The Void Stalker was still there. It was huge, at least 700 kilograms of shadow and claw and nightmare. Its body was curled up like a sleeping cat. Its terrible eyes were half closed. Its long tail was wrapped around itself, and the old man was scratching it behind its ears. "Good boy, Bori," the old man said. Wujin's translator picked up the words clearly. "You want a treat? Here you go." The old man reached into a bowl beside his chair. He pulled out something small and dried. A fish, maybe. He tossed it into the air. The Void Stalker moved. For one terrible instant, Wujin saw its true speed. It was faster than thought. Faster than light? The creature's head snapped forward, and it caught the treat in midair. Then it settled back down and made a sound. A deep, rumbling sound. It was purring. Wujin sat in his chair for a very long time. He did not know what to do. This was not covered in any training manual. There was no protocol for what to do when you find a human keeping a cosmic horror as a pet. He decided to send his report to Ambassador Yuna. She was leading the coalition's response to the Void Stalker crisis. She would know what to do. He wrote his message carefully. He included all the sensor data. He attached the video recordings. He checked everything 3 times to make sure he was not making a mistake. Then he added a personal note at the end. "I know this seems impossible. I did not believe it myself. But the data is correct. I have checked it many times. There's a human on this planet who has a Void Stalker living with him. He calls it Bori. He feeds it dried fish. I think it likes him." He sent the message and waited. The response came 12 hours later. It was short. "Stay in orbit. Do not approach. Do not make contact. We are coming." Wujin did as he was told. He kept his ship high above the planet and watched the farm through his cameras. Day turned to night, turned to day again. The old man went about his simple life. He worked in his fields. He fed his ducks. He cooked meals in his small kitchen, and every evening sat on his porch with the Void Stalker beside him. Sometimes a young woman came to visit. The old man's granddaughter, Wujin, guessed. She had dark hair and a bright smile. She was not afraid of the creature either. She even hugged it once, wrapping her arms around its massive neck like it was a big dog. The Void Stalker let her. It did not attack. It did not feed on her fear. It just sat there and let itself be hugged. Wujin watched all of this and felt his understanding of the universe crumble. Everything he had been taught was wrong. The Void Stalker was supposed to be an unstoppable killing machine. It was supposed to be the ultimate predator, feared by all living things. But here it was, getting belly rubs from an old farmer. What were humans? What kind of species could do this? Wujin did not know. But he had a feeling that the answer would change everything. 3 days later, a coalition diplomatic ship arrived. Ambassador Yuna was on board, along with 20 specialists and a small army of security guards. They landed 3 kilometers from the farm. Standard safety distance for a dangerous predator was 50 kilometers. They were taking a very big risk. Wu Jin watched from orbit as the delegation approached the farm. He saw the old man come out to meet them. He saw the Void Stalker follow behind, moving like living shadow. He saw Ambassador Yuna freeze in terror. He saw her team raise their weapons, and he saw the old man wave his hand and say something that his translator picked up clearly. "Put those down. You will scare Bori." Wu Jin laughed. He could not help it. The situation was too strange, too impossible. The galaxy's greatest nightmare was afraid of loud noises. And an old human farmer was protecting it. What a universe this was, Ambassador. Yuna had faced many difficult situations in her long career. She had negotiated peace treaties between species that had been at war for centuries. She had walked into rooms full of hostile politicians and walked out with their respect. She had stood before the Coalition Council and delivered news that no one wanted to hear. But nothing had prepared her for this. She stood at the gate of a small farm on a planet called Earth. Behind her were 20 specialists from across the galaxy. They were the best scientists, soldiers, and diplomats the Coalition could offer. They had studied the Void Stalker for years. They knew everything about it. Except, apparently, how to make it behave like a house pet. The creature sat about 10 meters away. It was watching them with eyes that held ancient hunger. Its body was made of shadows and nightmares. Every instinct in Yuna's body screamed at her to run, to hide, to get as far away as possible, but she did not run. She was Ambassador Yuna of the Kalari. She did not run from anything. The old human man walked toward them with a calm smile on his wrinkled face. He wore simple clothes, worn shirt, and loose pants. His hands were rough from years of farm work. He looked like he had never worried about anything more serious than whether it would rain tomorrow. "Welcome, welcome," he said. His name was Do Yen. According to their records, 73 years old, retired, lived alone on this farm after his wife passed away. His granddaughter visited him every week. "Sorry for the mess. I was not expecting guests." Yuna tried to speak, but her voice came out as a whisper. She cleared her throat and tried again. "Honored human," she managed, "you are keeping that thing as a pet?" Doyan glanced back at the creature. "Oh, Bori. Yes, he has been with me for about 6 years now. Found him as a baby in my cabbage field. Poor thing was all alone, crying and scared. Crying and scared." The words did not make sense. Void Stalkers did not cry. Void Stalkers did not get scared. Void Stalkers made other things cry and get scared. "That is impossible," said Dr. Kira, the team's expert on dangerous creatures. She was a tall woman with 4 arms and silver skin. Her voice shook as she spoke. "Void Stalkers are born fully dangerous. They feed on fear from the moment they hatch. They do not have infant stages. They do not need care." Doyan shrugged. "I do not know about any of that. I just know what I saw. A little shadow thing about the size of a dog hiding in my cabbages. It was making sad noises. When I got close, it tried to scare me." He chuckled at the memory. "It did scare me, I suppose. My heart was beating very fast. A strange little monster with those big eyes. But I have dealt with scared animals before. You cannot let fear control you. So I went inside, got some leftover rice, and brought it back out." "You fed it," Yuna said slowly. "Of course. Hungry creatures need food. I did not know what it ate, so I tried different things. Rice did not work. Bread did not work. But then I tried some dried fish, and it gobbled them right up." The Void Stalker boar made a sound at the mention of dried fish. Its tail twitched. "See?" Doyan smiled. He remembers. He loves dried fish. "I buy them in big bags now." Captain Sung, the head of security, stepped forward. His hand was on his weapon. His face was pale, but his voice was steady. "Sir, with all respect, that creature has killed thousands of people. It has destroyed entire outposts. It is the most dangerous predator in the known galaxy. Doyan looked at Bori. Bori looked back at him. The old man reached out and patted the creature's head. Bori. Dangerous? He shook his head. No, he is a good boy. A little naughty sometimes. He used to chase my chickens. But I taught him that was wrong. Now, he leaves them alone. You taught it, Captain Sung repeated. You taught a void stalker not to chase chickens. You have to be patient with animals. Firm but kind. When he did something bad, I would say no in a loud voice. When he did something good, I would give him treats and praise. Same way my father taught me to train dogs when I was young. Specialists looked at each other. None of them knew what to say. This was beyond anything they had imagined. Yuna stepped closer. The void stalker watched her, and she felt its attention like cold water running down her spine. But she did not stop. She needed to understand. How are you not afraid? She asked Do Yen. It feeds on fear. When you feel terror, it becomes stronger. It should have consumed you years ago. Doyen thought about this for a moment. I was afraid, he admitted. At first, when I saw what Bori could do, the way he moved through shadows, the way he could disappear and appear somewhere else, was very afraid. But you did not run. No, running does not help with fear. I learned that a long time ago. He sat down on a wooden bench near his porch. Bori moved to sit beside him, its massive body blocking out the sun. When I was young, there was a war in my country. I saw terrible things. I felt fear every day. But I still had to live. I still had to work. I still had to take care of my family. He reached out and scratched Bori under the chin. The creature closed its eyes with pleasure. Fear is just a feeling, Doyan continued. It tells you something might be dangerous. But it does not control you. You feel it. You understand it. And then you decide what to do. That is what it means to be brave. Not the absence of fear. The ability to act anyway. Yuna listened carefully. She was starting to understand something important. Something that might change everything. When you stopped being afraid, she said slowly, Bori could not feed on you anymore. I suppose so. I do not know the science of it. I just know that after a while Bori stopped trying to scare me. Maybe he realized it would not work. Or maybe he just got used to me. Animals do that, you know? They learn who is safe and who is not. Dr. Kira was taking notes frantically. This is unprecedented, she muttered. A prey species that can resist the void stalker's primary hunting mechanism. The psychological implications alone. I am not a prey species, Doyan said mildly. I am just a farmer. And Bori is not a hunter. Not anymore. He is my friend. As if to prove his point, Bori rolled onto its back. Its terrible claws that could cut through starship armor waved in the air. Its tail thumped against the ground. Doyan laughed and rubbed its belly. Good boy, he said. Good boy, Bori. Yuna watched this scene with wonder. The most feared creature in the galaxy, acting like a happy dog, and an old human man treating it like one, maybe she thought. We've been looking at this problem all wrong. Maybe the answer was not bigger weapons or stronger shields. Maybe the answer was something much simpler. Maybe the answer was not being afraid. She needed to report this to the council immediately. But first, she had one more question. Mr. Doyen, she said, would you be willing to teach us? To teach us how you did this? The old man looked surprised. Then he smiled. Of course, he said. But first, would you like some tea? You all look very stressed. Stress is not good for the body, or for making friends with void stalkers. He stood up and walked toward his house. Bori followed behind him like a loyal shadow. After a moment, Una followed too. Dr. Hannah had spent her whole life studying dangerous creatures. She had examined the venom of the serpent kings of Velos. She had mapped the hunting, patterns of the shadow worms of the dark nebula. She had even survived an encounter with a rage beast, though she still had scars to prove it, but nothing had fascinated her like humans. She had been on Doyen's farm for 2 weeks now, studying everything she could. Ambassador Yuna had given her permission to stay as long as she needed. The Coalition Council wanted answers, and Hannah was determined to find them. "Run that test again," she told her assistant, a young Kaleri named Jiwan. Jiwan pressed some buttons on his equipment. The machine hummed. Numbers appeared on the screen. "Same result," Jiwan said. "Human neural patterns are completely different from every other species we have studied." Hannah nodded. She had expected this. But seeing the proof in front of her still made her heart she had 3 beat faster with excitement. Every intelligent species in the galaxy experienced fear in the same basic way. When they encountered danger, their brains released certain chemicals. These chemicals caused panic. The panic fed into itself, growing stronger and stronger until the creature could not think clearly. This feedback loop was what made the Void Stalker so deadly. It triggered the fear response in its prey and fed on the ever-growing terror. But humans were different. When humans encountered danger, their brains also released fear chemicals. But then something strange happened. Other parts of their brain activated parts that other species did not have or had in much smaller amounts. These parts analyzed the fear. They processed it. They turned raw panic into something else entirely. Humans called this courage. They thought it was a choice. But Hannah now understood it was actually biology. Human brains were built to feel fear, then move past it. They could not help it. It was as natural to them as breathing. "Extraordinary," Hannah whispered. She walked outside to find Do-Yan. The old farmer was in his vegetable garden, pulling weeds. Bori was nearby, lying in the shade of a large tree. The creature's eyes were half closed, but Hannah knew it was aware of everything happening around it. "Mr. Do-Yan?" Hannah said. "May I ask you some questions?" The old man wiped sweat from his forehead. "Of course, but help me with these weeds while we talk. Many hands make light work." Hannah knelt down beside him. She had never pulled weeds before. It was strangely satisfying. "When you first met Bori," she asked, "how long were you afraid of him?" Do-Yan thought about this. "A few days? Maybe? A week? It is hard to remember. Those first nights were difficult. I would lie in bed and think about those teeth, those claws. I would wonder if I was making a terrible mistake. But you kept feeding him anyway." "Yes. Fear is not a good reason to let something starve." He pulled out a particularly stubborn weed and tossed it aside. "Besides, after a while, I started to see that Bori was not trying to hurt me. He was just existing, living his life. He was scary to look at, yes, but he was not evil." Hannah considered this. "Other species cannot do what you did. When they feel fear, they cannot think clearly. They cannot choose to act differently. The terror controls them completely." Now Do-Yan nodded slowly. "I have heard this from your people. It sounds terrible. Fear controlling your whole mind? That must be very hard. It is simply how we are built. How all species are built." "Ah," Hannah paused. "Except humans. I suppose we are lucky then." "Lucky." Hannah almost laughed. Humans had no idea how special they were. They thought their ability to overcome fear was ordinary. Normal, something everyone could do. They had no idea that they were unique in all the galaxy. Later that day, Do-Yan's granddaughter arrived. Her name was Minji. She was young, maybe 25 in human years, with bright eyes and a quick smile. She worked as an animal doctor in a nearby city. "Grandfather." She called out as she walked up the path. "I brought those vitamins you wanted for Bori." She carried a large bag over her shoulder. When she reached the tree where Bori was resting, she dropped the bag and threw her arms around the creature's neck. "Hello, big boy," she said. "Did you miss me?" Bori made a rumbling sound. Its tail wagged. Hannah watched this scene with wonder. Minji showed no fear at all. None, even after 2 weeks of exposure. Hannah still felt a small tremor of terror whenever Bori looked at her. But this young human hugged the creature like it was a large, friendly dog. "Ms. Mingi," Hannah said, approaching carefully. "May I ask you something?" Minji looked up with a friendly expression. "Sure. You are one of the alien scientists, right?" "Grandfather told me about you. Yes, I am Dr. Hannah. I study dangerous creatures, Minji laughed. Then you must love Bori. Is he the most dangerous creature you have ever seen? By far, which is why I'm curious. Are you not afraid of him at all? Minji thought about this for a moment. She was still stroking Bori's neck. The creature had closed its eyes completely now, enjoying the attention. I was scared the first time I saw him, she admitted. Grandfather called me and said he had found a strange animal. When I arrived and saw this thing made of shadows, I screamed. I actually screamed and ran back to my car. What changed? Grandfather walked out with Bori, following him like a puppy. He was holding a bowl of dried fish and talking to Bori in that calm voice he uses. And I realized Bori was not hunting. He was not attacking. He was just following Grandfather around, hoping for treats. She scratched behind Bori's ears. The creature made a happy noise. Fear tells you that something might be dangerous, Minji continued. But you have to look with your own eyes to know if it actually is dangerous. Bori looked scary, but he acted gentle. So I decided to trust what I could see, not what I felt. This was it, Hannah realized. This was the human secret. They could separate their feelings from their actions. They could feel terror in their hearts but still think clearly in their minds. No other species could do this. Not one. That evening, Hannah called Ambassador Yuna with her findings. The humans are immune, Hannah said. Not completely. They feel fear like anyone else. But their brains process it differently. The fear response does not overwhelm them. They can feel it and move past it.
Ow.
Yuna was silent for a long moment. You are saying that humans can resist void stalkers naturally? Without any technology or training? Yes. Their biology allows them to do what we cannot. They can face their fear and choose to act anyway. This changes everything. Yes, Hannah agreed. It does. Over the next few days, more specialists arrived. They ran more tests. They interviewed Doyin and Minji extensively. They studied Bori from a safe distance, or what they thought was a safe distance. The creature seemed to find their nervousness amusing. The evidence was clear. Humans had a gift that no other species possessed. And if they were willing to share it, to teach others, they might just save the galaxy. Ambassador Yuna sent her full report to the Coalition Council. It was the most important message of her career. We have found the answer, she wrote. It was not in our weapons or our shields. It was not in our ancient records or our advanced technology. It was on a small farm, on a primitive planet, in the heart of an old man who simply chose not to be afraid. She paused before adding the final line. The humans can save us. We just have to ask them. 1 year later, the galaxy was a very different place. Minji stood on the observation deck of the Luna station, looking down at the blue and white marble of Earth. Behind her, through reinforced glass walls, was the largest void stalker sanctuary in the known universe. 23 of the creatures lived there now, each one rescued from the depths of space. Hard to believe, said Tien, walking up beside her. He was a tall man with broad shoulders and gentle eyes. Before this, he had worked training police dogs. Now, he trained cosmic nightmares. A year ago, these things were the most feared creatures in existence. Now they line up for belly rubs and treats. Minji smiled. Grandfather always said that every creature wants the same things: food, safety, and someone who cares about them. Even monsters. She watched through the glass as a young woman named Yoonji entered one of the enclosures. Yoonji had been a veterinarian specializing in large animals before she joined the program. Now, she was one of the best void stalker handlers on the station. The creature in the enclosure was new, brought in just 2 days ago from a destroyed research station. It had been wild and terrified when it arrived, snapping at anything that came close. But Yanji approached it calmly, speaking in a soft voice. Holding out a bowl of dried fish, the void stalker watched her with suspicious eyes. Its body was tense, ready to attack or flee. Shadows rippled across its skin. Yunji did not show any fear. She simply sat down on the floor, placed the bowl in front of her, and waited. Minutes passed. The creature did not move. Neither did Aang. Then slowly the Void Stalker crept forward. It sniffed the bowl. It looked at Yunji. It sniffed again. And then it ate. Minji felt a warmth in her chest. Another one saved. Another connection made. The Coalition Council is sending another delegation tomorrow, Taeyeon said. They want to discuss expanding the program. More sanctuaries? More everything. They want to build facilities on other planets. Train handlers from other species. He paused. They are even talking about using our methods to approach other dangerous creatures. Things that were considered untouchable before. Minji nodded. This did not surprise her. The news of what humans could do had spread across the galaxy like fire. Species that had ignored Earth for years suddenly wanted to be friends. Diplomats arrived every week, asking questions, offering trade agreements, seeking alliances. It was strange. Humans had not done anything heroic in the traditional sense. They had not built giant weapons or won great battles. They had simply shown the galaxy a different way of dealing with fear. And that, apparently, was revolutionary. "How's your grandfather doing?" Taeyeon asked. Mingi laughed. "He is annoyed. Too many visitors. He says he cannot work in his garden in peace anymore. Last week, a documentary crew from the Threll Dominion wanted to film him feeding Bori. He told them to go away unless they were willing to help weed his pepper plants. Did they help? They did. For Threll warriors, pulling weeds in a vegetable garden. Grandfather made them tea afterward and told them stories about his youth. I think they were more scared of him than they were of Bori." Taeyeon smiled. "Your grandfather is a remarkable man. He would not agree. He still thinks he just did what anyone would do." Minji shook her head. "He does not understand that what is normal for humans is impossible for everyone else." In the enclosure below, Yunji had made progress. The Void Stalker was now eating from her hand. Its body was less tense. The shadows on its skin had calmed. Another few days, Minji thought, and it would be following her around like Bori followed grandfather. The door behind them opened, and a familiar figure walked onto the observation deck. Ambassador Yuna looked different from when Minji had first met her. Less afraid, more confident. Spending time around humans had changed her. "Miss Mingi, Mr. Taeyeon," Yuna said in greeting. "I have news from the council." "Good news or bad news?" Taeyeon asked. "Good, I think. The council has officially recognized Earth as a protected world. No species may threaten or invade it. Additionally, humans are being offered full membership in the coalition, with all the rights and privileges that includes." Minji raised her eyebrows. "That is a big deal, is it not?" "It is. Species usually have to wait centuries for full membership. You are receiving it after only 40 years of interstellar travel." Yuna paused. Some council members argued that this was too fast, that humans had not proven themselves. What changed their minds? Yuna gestured at the sanctuary below. That every time one of your handlers walks into an enclosure with a wild Void Stalker, they prove themselves. Every time they show courage that our bravest soldiers cannot match, they prove themselves. She looked at Minji with something like wonder in her eyes. "You do not even think of it as special. That is perhaps the most remarkable part." Minji did not know what to say. She had never thought of herself as brave. She was just doing her job, taking care of animals that needed help. The fact that those animals happened to be cosmic horrors did not change the basic work. Feed them, keep them safe, show them kindness. It was not complicated. "There is one more thing," Yuna continued. "The council has a request. They would like Mr. Doyon to address them directly, to share his wisdom with the representatives of 200 species." Minji almost laughed. "Grandfather, give a speech to the Galactic Council?" "Yes. They believe his words could inspire others. Help them understand how humans think about fear and courage." Mingi tried to imagine her grandfather standing in that huge hall, facing hundreds of alien diplomats. He would probably wear his old farm clothes. He would probably bring snacks. "I will ask him," she said, "but I cannot promise he will say yes. He does not like traveling. Whatever he decides, the invitation stands." After Yuna left, Minji and Taeyeon watched the sanctuary in silence for a while. The Void Stalkers moved through their enclosures like shadows, dark and strange and beautiful. Some were sleeping. Some were playing with the enrichment toys the handlers had designed for them. One was chasing its own tail. Do you think other species can learn to do what we do? Taeyeon asked. To face fear and move past it? Minji considered this carefully. I do not know. Dr. Hannah says it is built into our biology. But maybe it can be taught at least a little. Maybe if we show them how, they can find their own version of courage. That would be something. Teaching the galaxy to be brave. Gronflo would say we are not teaching them anything new. He would say the courage was always there. They just forgot how to find it. Taeyeon nodded slowly. Your grandfather is probably right. In the enclosure below, Yoonji was now scratching the new Void Stalker behind its ears. The creature had rolled onto its side, its terrible claws relaxed, its ancient eyes peaceful. It made a rumbling sound. It was purring. Minji smiled and thought of her grandfather, sitting on his porch with Bori beside him. He had found a scared creature in his cabbage field and chosen to help it. That was all. He had not thought about saving the galaxy, or changing history, or teaching aliens about courage. He had just seen something that needed kindness and given it. Maybe that was the real lesson. Not how to be brave, but how to be kind. If the galaxy could learn that, Minji thought, then maybe everything would be okay. Above the station, stars burned in the endless dark. Somewhere out there, more Void Stalkers drifted through the void, alone and hungry and afraid. But they would not be alone forever. The humans would find them. The humans would help them. Because that was what humans did. They faced the darkness and brought light into it. Not with weapons or power, but with simple, stubborn kindness. And in a universe full of fear, that was the bravest thing of all.